This is Bryan Lincoln, producer of Hidden Harbor Mysteries. I have one last interview here to release before the first episode drops. That is the actor Nicole, who played Cat Sparrow in the series. It was something of a last-minute decision to try to throw some interviews in the feed, as I've done, so not everyone was able to be lined up, and I wanted to point out the others that I have not interviewed here in the beginning of this podcast feed, so that they can also get their hard work out there for you guys to discover. Playing a few small roles in the series is Chris Lester. He has a podcast called Metamore City that you guys should check out over at metamorcity.com. It was probably the first example of a full cast audio that I heard, and one of the chief reasons that I got into this kind of a medium, producing audio. So having Chris in the cast was pretty special for me. Also, Rish Outfield, who played quite a variety of very important characters in the show, including Michael in episode 1 that you'll hear. Rish is just a tremendous talent and one of the first voice talents I ever worked with. He has a show called the Dunesteef Audio Fiction Magazine that he does with Big Anklevich, and the two of them are just tremendous, and I love their show. I love what these guys do. So if you're interested in hearing a bunch of short fiction, mostly done, or actually with these guys, it's all done with a full cast, you'll really enjoy Dunesteef. Go check them out over at dunesteef.com. Alex White also was an ensemble actor. He plays Green Street, which you'll hear in, I think it's episode 3, one of my favorite characters in the whole show. Alex is tremendously talented. He has a show that he produced, an audiobook that he produced, called The Gear Heart. He also has one of my favorite podcasts to listen to called Disaster Piece Theatry. It's sort of a Hollywood pitch meeting of movie ideas meant to be pitching the worst movie ideas you could have. And him and Stephen Grenade co-host this show. It's one of my favorite shows out there. It's just so fun. I get a kick out of every single one of them. I recommend you check it out. John Scott Ballantyne. He's from Campfire Radio Theater. He's one of the best examples of good audio drama that you'll find out there. Campfire Radio Theater, they like to do short horror-type stories. They're tremendously well written and very well produced, so I highly recommend you check out what they have over there at Campfire Radio Theater. It's really good stuff. And finally, Renee Chambliss, also an ensemble actor. She played the young kid Bruce in episode 1, but she plays a variety of characters throughout the show. She has a novel that she narrated called Dreaming of Deliverance. You can find that over at podiobooks.com, but you also can find a whole bunch of stuff that Renee has narrated over at audible.com if you search for her name, Renee Chambliss. She's a tremendous voice talent, and it's an honor to work with her as well. So that's it. That's just a number of shows. I'll link them in the feed that I have over at lincolnaudio.com. Now, our main website for this show is at hiddenharbormysteries.com. I actually generate the feed of the episodes within lincolnaudio.com, and then Jay Smith, who's the writer for the show, he runs the hiddenharbormysteries.com site, and he'll also post stuff over there after it comes out. But in terms of show notes for the interview segments, you'll have to go over to check out lincolnaudio.com. You'll find some links underneath each of the episodes that I post on that feed. If you go to hiddenharbormysteries.com and go under the cast and crew page, you'll also find that underneath each person's picture, there'll be a link that you can click that will bring you to their stuff as well. I do want to encourage people to check out the hard work of all these people. The actors working on the show did so for free. I produced it for free. This is a Creative Commons project. It's a show that's meant to entertain. I'm eternally grateful for all the volunteer work that people have given to be able to put this show together with this kind of talent. For nothing is pretty incredible. So it's really important to me that people who have given their time to this show are in some way given a chance to be revealed to the audience, so you can find their other stuff, check them out. There's just so much great fiction content out there, and it's been a pleasure to work with some of the best. I'm here with Laura Nicole, who played Cat Sparrow, who I guess, what would you call her? The sidekick or the...
Yeah, she's kind of like Xena's Gabrielle.
Yeah,
Um, Not so much plucky because she's definitely more streetwise, but definitely has that crucial balance for the femme phantom. So it was kind of cool to be able to be that kind of support for for the main character.
yeah.
And it took a lot of pressure off of me because I wasn't actually the main character.
Yeah, so the first question I'm asking everyone that I'm interviewing like this is, did you have fun playing the role?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like Jay kind of wrote it for me, which was fun.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of things where it's just like, yeah, okay, I could totally see myself doing that too.
Yeah. I mean, you had a, in terms of what you were asked to do was up there. You had to cry a bit and scream, and so it was definitely not a simple character that you chose.
No, the character itself is very 3D as far as characters go, and Jay does a good job of that with all of his characters that he tries to make sure that they're an integral part of the plot, that they're not just one-sided. And so with Kat, you see a big range of emotions, and I remember having conversations with you and with Jay about her relationship toward Barbara.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of ambiguous. It's a little more than just employer-employee, but it's not quite something more intense, but very family like. So that was a difficult balance, and I think the hardest thing, other than keeping my dogs from reacting to me screaming, which was hilarious, was just making sure that I didn't over or underperform what the scene needed.
Yeah, which is always a challenge with the satellite recording style, because you don't necessarily know. I mean, you might talk to a couple of actors about their plan or whatever, but unless you all get on Skype and record together, which is really tough to even organize, especially with every scene being a different mix of people, you're pretty much giving me a few different takes in anticipation of how the other person might be acting in terms of level of intensity. So it's a bit of a challenge in that regard. That's part of the challenge of putting the show together, is making sure that it all fits together and sounds like everyone was actually talking to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great things, though, about working with Veronica Jaguar is she's very approachable, and I've known her for a couple of years, and we've been dancing around doing a part together. So when I started recording for Kat, I pinged her on Twitter and said, hey, I kind of need your help because I'm not sure how to do this scene, and this is a scene where it's very much between you and I.
Yeah.
And what's lost is that there is, we recorded our interaction saying everybody's lines, which ended up just being a big old giggle fest, but it also helped build a real rapport between Barbara and Kat, which was something that I think in the scenes that I've heard so far of the show really plays itself out. She and I was hearing her when I was reading her lines off the page to react to. So it was good to have that kind of bonding moment with her. And I don't think a lot of voice actors get that, even on a high-paid professional scale. It's not something that you usually get. The back and forth is not always organic.
Right.
So it was a great experience to work with her in that capacity so that I could be prepared for my satellite performance.
Yeah, and you've acted in quite a number of things by now. I mean, we knew you before from HG World, of course.
Yep, and I've been acting since I think 2005 is when I first did my first satellite audio performance. I did a promo for a game called Morning's Wrath, where I was a princess who had just lost everything and is trying to save her kingdom. And then I went on to do some bit parts for Broken Sea Audio, and it kind of spiraled from there, and everybody wanted my English accent,
right.
which is like, okay. So this was the first real big part that I was able to use my natural voice for.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, you had to use the English one in HG World, of course.
Yes, I had a Manchester with a slight Hindi accent. Thanks, Abe Cody, for training me on that. Because it's hard when you've got both an accent and you've got a type of ethnicity that you have to bring into it as well.
Yeah, and a shout out to Abe, who is actually in the cast. He plays Michael's father in one scene.
Yeah.
We needed someone that could pull off the acting ability opposite Rich for that scene, and
oh my goodness,
it's a pretty easy choice.
He's always an easy choice when it comes to who do we need for a very refined accent or a very gruff Scottish accent, depending on the show.
Right. So you also have, I see that you have a video series called Gypsy in the Attic.
So Gypsy in the Attic is both a video and audio series. It started off as my New Year's resolution for the year, that every time that I would go into the attic to record, thus Gypsy in the Attic, I would also do a short, kind of like an audio diary of me, of what I experienced through recording or what trials I'm facing, because I was doing my first audiobook at that time. And then it got to, well, I'm just talking about my experiences. I should really talk to other voice actors or other producers and find out more about their process and share that with people, because I didn't see a show like that out there. And so the easiest way for me to do the recordings was to use Google Hangouts, and that just added a depth to it, because a lot of times you don't get to see the faces behind the voices that you know.
Right.
So you got to actually see Veronica Jaguar and Starla Hutchin and PC Herring. I just finished one with Scott Sigler last week, and it was really cool to, it's been really cool to bring that to the world. I don't think the world's watching it yet, but maybe. And I hope to keep doing it, because this is what I love, and I love sharing information.
And those conversations that you have, are they primarily about voice acting, or is it a more broad?
Mostly it's about voice acting. We talk about different methods, different resources, different promotional tactics, different programs that you use to get better. It's kind of like a continuous improvement methodology. From there, I get a little silly after we get all the meat and potatoes out of the way. I've asked several times if you could choose any voice actor to read some of your work and record some of your work, who would you choose? So far, like, I've got a whole bunch of one-offs, and then I've got Nathan Lowell and Patrick McLean. So, and they both have multiples of multiple votes. So we'll see what we can get.
Do people usually pick names from within our community, or do they pick like Hollywood names?
It's kind of a toss-up. It depends on who you ask. Like, if I ask some people that are just barely getting into publishing, they choose from within the new media group, because A, because this is what they've experienced the most, and B, because this is the group that's supported them the most. When you get to some people who think big and who publish big, their minds are broadened, and so they think of, well, the sky's the limit. Who could I have? I think Helen Mirren is the one that I was like, oh yeah, I would have her read anything of mine.
I think mine, not that you asked me, but mine would be Nick Podell, who did the audiobook for The Name of the Wind.
Well, damn it, now I can't interview you because you've already answered the question.
Well, it'd be a no. But that guy is That guy's just tremendous because he just does so many voices. And I just think that when you get to the real audiobook narration is different from obviously audio drama voice acting.
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to jump between hundreds of different, a book like that, book 2, which I think was incredible. It's called A Wise Man's Fear, was 43 hours long.
Yeah.
With hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of characters. And every time you switched over, you knew who it was. And I feel like I could live 1,000 years and never be able to do that.
Yeah. Another good one is Jim Rose, and he did the Harry Potter series. He did the entire Harry Potter series. And I think he said he did 200 something voices for that series.
And a lot of young voices too. That's got to be hard.
A lot of young voices, and he didn't fake the female voices. He just had a slight method of making it sound a little bit feminine, as opposed to doing things that I really hate it when men do, which is high pitch their voices and going into a falsetto. Yeah,
I've heard the better technique is to try to go a little bit softer without it being like extremely different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like for women, when I do a man's voice in my own stuff, it's not so much I'm going into this deep baritone and the lower tones of my voice, but I'm going into more of a gruff, edgier type of tone with the words that I'm saying. Yeah. It's just amazing how the different styles of audio storytelling require a totally different skill set. Like I said, the audiobooks, you need all different kinds of accents and voices. And if you're doing audio drama, you have to be able to read different takes of lines, anticipating what the other person might be saying. And so you need to have that kind of creative imagination of different ways the scene could go. I have a lot of voice actors in the past, because I've, between doing Dune Steve and Drabblecast and all these other short fiction podcasts I've done, I've been able to try out and work with a lot of different potential voice talent. And probably the biggest mistake that people make is I ask them for 3 takes and they just give me 3 identical takes. Or sometimes they'll even give me 3 takes where the first 2 had mistakes in them and they finally got the third one. You know what I mean? And the whole point is to give a little bit of variety. You know what I mean? Do one where you're just really extremely into it and another one where you're kind of being sarcastic or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, just be creative with it. Absolutely. But. And where I've produced audio as well, I definitely get that. And sometimes you get little gems out of that, because sometimes you'll have written something that's a little hard to say, or it just doesn't sound right in that character's voice. And you have a good voice actor when they do it the way it's written, and then they say, okay, so that's how it's written. Here's how I think it would sound better. And they give that take, and 50-50 shot, it's probably going to be the one that you're going to take because it sounds more natural to the character. Yeah. And so some of the voice actors that I got to use in the various shows that I've produced gave me those little tidbits that were just right and just made that line so much better. Yeah, when I line select, that's exactly right. If somebody does a couple slightly different versions of the same line, I'm going to take the one that fits the scene the best. Like if they change it so much that it loses something that had to be there, it's not usable. But if they change the wording a little bit and it just sounds like the character more, then that's the one I'm picking. It's not about being verbatim. It's about telling a story. Exactly. So. Yeah. I miss doing that. It just takes so freaking long. Oh, it's a lot of work for sure. I'm more on the producer end than the voice acting end. I do voice here and there for things, but I just enjoy the art form. That's why I put all the time into it. That's my art form. And other people, it's more about the writing. Other people, it's more about voicing characters. That's really their bread and butter, or their prime motivation to getting into all this stuff. But for me, it's the production itself is my main form of self-entertainment, I guess. Yeah, definitely. So last thing I want to ask you is, do you have any advice, since you've been, doing this show where you talk to different people about the techniques of voice acting and what you've learned? What is a piece of advice you have for somebody starting out as a voice actor? Don't be afraid to audition for things that seem outside of your comfort zone or outside of your voice range. It took me a little bit to get comfortable enough with recording that I could go for parts that were a little more difficult or a little edgier. Like, I had the girl next door thing going on for so long that I really wanted to do something else. Mm-hmm. So it took a couple years for me to find this one villain part, and I had to really reach deep inside myself to get that villain part, because she had to do some kind of awful things. But then my favorite character to date that I've played, which is Steelwing from Broken Sea Audio's Feedback series. She's a supervillain, and she has this great evil laugh, and I love playing that character. Or I should say I loved playing that character. The show is no longer running that arc, which is sad. But it's I really enjoyed being that evil, and because I was finally able to break through, I've been able to go on to do shows like The Oz Job, which is a very gritty version of The Wizard of Oz. And it is not safe for work at all, but it was probably the most sturdy thing I've done before I started working for Nobilis Reed as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it's worth the risk, because you end up getting such really good parts that fulfill maybe the darker side of you, or the lighter side of you, conversely.
Yeah, part of voice acting is being able to play different characters. It's not putting yourself into the story. Like if I ever have a voice actor say, well, I wouldn't say that, it's like, well, it's not you.
Exactly. It's not you. It's the character.
Yeah, exactly. I don't run into that too often, but I've definitely met some people that kind of gave me the vibe that they felt that way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and the people with range, you can tell that they'll do anything.
Careful what you wish for.
Exactly. All right. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Well, thank you. And if anybody else wants to catch the rest of my stuff, you can find my show and any other little tidbits on gypsylaura.com.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for your time. Enjoy the show.
All right, that was Laura Nicole. Once again, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to the feed. Next up is episode 1. Please enjoy the show. Let us know what you think. Go to iTunes and post a review if you think of it. And as I said, check out other stuff by this wonderful cast. Take care, and thank you for listening. Hidden Harbor Mysteries is released under a Creative Commons Attribution No Derivatives 4.0 license. Check out the website, as I said, and you can also look for more of my productions at lincolnaudio.com.